So welcome back to the Children Bible Story in 365 Stories, the Children's Bible in 365 Stories. Last time we heard the story of Joseph, what happened after he interpreted the dream for the Pharaoh, and then gave the Pharaoh advice on how to deal with it. And the dream that God told Joseph to interpret said that there were going to be 7 good years of food and then 7 really bad years of food. And so Joseph advised the king to store up for those 7 years and not eat all the abundance and set a bunch aside. And so the Pharaoh decided to put him in charge and made him his new minister and sent him all around the country. And he set up storage bins in every city, set orders to what needed to happen, and made sure those orders were followed so that there were all these storage bins in every community filled with grain so that after the 7 good years, when the famine hit, they had food to keep people fed and to keep people doing the things they needed to be doing because they had planned ahead. And Joseph did this all because he was trusting in God. So let us continue and find out more about what happens to Joseph now that he's the minister. We're picking up with food in Egypt, and if you're following along in a Bible, we're now into Genesis chapter 42. Back in the land of Canaan, Jacob and his sons were hungry. Remember, that's Joseph's father, and he had a group of brothers. He had 10 brothers through one of Jacob's wives, and he and Benjamin were brothers through the other. And they had been jealous of Joseph because his father favored him over all the others and treated him so special that they were upset with that. And that's part of how he got betrayed. So here his dad and his sons, because the moms had died, are back in Canaan, a different land, a neighboring land, and they are starving. Let us continue. I hear that they have grain to sell in Egypt, Jacob told his sons. Go there and buy some for us. All the brothers set out, except for Benjamin. Jacob could not bear to be parted from him, for he was the only remaining child of Rachel, the wife he had loved so dearly. So if you remember back in the story, Jacob was pledged, he worked for 7 years to get a wife, and he was tricked and given the sister. So he worked 7 more years, got the wife he was in love with, the other sister, and he favored the two sons from the wife that he was in love with. And no matter how much the other wife had tried to please him and had given him 10 sons, he always favored those 2. And Benjamin was from Rachel, and so was Joseph. And so he kept Benjamin with him and sent the other 10 sons on ahead. As soon as the 10 strangers were ushered into the presence of Joseph, he recognized his brothers. But they had no idea who he was. So if you remember, he was sold into slavery, worked his way up to running his master's house, which took time, then got accused by the master's wife falsely, was thrown in prison. He was in prison well over 2 years. Then he was released from prison to talk to the king. He was put in charge and had spent 7 years storing up, and now we're somewhere in the next 7 years. So his brothers have not seen him in probably a good 10 years or more. And he was a child when they saw him. Now he was an adult. So part of why they didn't recognize him was that. And also they probably never occurred to them that after he'd go from being a slave to being the minister of Egypt in a prominent, powerful country. So it wouldn't even think or see or get that it would be him or expecting it, which is why they didn't get it. They never expected their brother to be alive, let alone the governor of Egypt. Besides, he was dressed like an Egyptian. Where do you come from? Joseph asked sternly. He spoke in the Egyptian language, and a servant translated all that was said. From Canaan, they answered. We have come to buy grain. I don't believe a word of it, Joseph said. I think you are a bunch of spies come to find out what is going on here. We are honest men, they protested. Then tell me all about yourselves, Joseph insisted. Well, there were 12 of us, all brothers, they began, but one brother is dead, and the youngest is so dear to his father that he would not let him come with us. Joseph felt strange when he heard himself described as dead, but he did not let his feelings show. Prove that you are innocent by bringing that youngest brother with you the next time you come, he ordered. I am going to keep one of you here as a hostage until you return. Simon was taken away, and put into prison. The others were allowed to go back to Canaan with sacks full of grain. When they arrived home and opened the sacks, they were horrified to find their own bags of money lying on top of the grain. They had been given back all they had paid. "Now we'll be accused of being thieves as well as spies," they cried. They did not know that Joseph had told his servants to put the money there. He was trying to find out what kind of men those cruel brothers had turned out to be. That's interesting. So now that he's in a position of power and authority, he's questioning who have my brothers become? Have they grown up faithful to God? Have they grown up not faithful to God? Have they thought about what they did in betraying me? How has that changed them? And he's now testing them. Well, we'll have to wait till our next story to hear more about what happens with Joseph and his brothers. Thanks for joining me. Be safe and have a blessed day.